Tell me, what is more dangerous to a man's soul, the sword that pierces his flesh, or the silence that pierces his mind? You believe you crave truth, yet truth rarely satisfies. It binds, it limits, it sets the prisoner free. But what if the greatest power lies not in the answers we give, but in the questions we refuse to resolve? Men are never so obedient, never so desperate, as when they are denied the closure they seek. And in this denial, one discovers a weapon far sharper than steel. Do you wish to know why? Then listen closely. Men speak often of closure, as though it were a door that can be shut with dignity and then forgotten. They imagine that in hearing the final word, in receiving some explanation, their hearts will be unchained, and the weight of memory will dissolve. But let us not deceive ourselves. Closure is not truth. It is opium for the weak. It is a story told to pacify the restless mind, a balm applied to wounds that never truly heal. The strong do not search for closure, for they know that all endings are already final, whether words are spoken or not. The one who craves closure is the one who secretly wishes to cling, who hopes to reopen what has already died. When you demand closure, you place your dignity in another's hands, asking them to grant you peace, to free you from the torment of uncertainty. This is the posture of dependence, and dependence is the enemy of power. For in such a plea, you admit that your enemy, your rival, or your former beloved has authority over your state of mind. You confess that their silence unsettles you more than your own will can steady you. And in that confession, you betray yourself, for no man or woman should surrender such sovereignty of spirit. Consider this truth: closure is never what you think it will be. The words offered will not ease the pain, but deepen it. The explanation will not satisfy, but create more questions. The apology will not heal, but remind you of the wound. Those who seek closure imagine it will grant them liberation, but instead it chains them to the past with fresher knots. For in asking another to end your story, you give them the pen, and they may write it in ways that cut deeper than silence ever could. The wise do not beg for closure, they create it. They understand that to wait upon another for peace is to remain forever captive. They choose instead to seal the chapter with their own hand, to declare the end without permission, and to move forward without approval. In this act, they preserve their pride, their strength, and most importantly, their autonomy. For what is more powerful than to stand unmoved, to say, "I need nothing more," and to mean it? To those who long for closure, I say this: you will never receive it in the way you desire. What you truly seek is not words, but the return of what has been lost. No answer, no explanation, no carefully crafted goodbye will ever restore it. Closure is an illusion for those unwilling to face the raw silence of finality. It is a fantasy for the heart that refuses to harden itself against reality. And so the strong, knowing this, do not chase phantoms. They bury the past without ceremony, they cut ties without lament, and they walk away without the foolish request for one last comfort. For the truth is simple: closure is not given, it is taken. Silence, though invisible, is the most piercing of blades. Words can be argued with, twisted, refuted, or forgotten, but silence admits no resistance. It lingers like a ghost, it haunts every corridor of thought, and it leaves the mind to gnaw upon itself. When you speak, you give shape to truth. You give your adversary something to hold. But when you say nothing, you leave them suspended in uncertainty, forced to question not only your meaning but their own worth. This is why silence is the sharpest weapon. It does not wound the body, it corrodes the spirit. Those who cry out for explanations reveal their weakness, for they expose how little they can endure the void. They demand words to ease the torment, believing that if they can only hear a reason, they will be free. But no man is ever freed by answers. Words may soothe for a moment, but soon they lose their power, and the pain resurfaces. Silence, however, never fades. It grows, it multiplies, it becomes 1,000 whispers in the mind of the one left waiting. You need not move against your enemy when silence has already begun to devour them. To withhold words is to hold dominion. Every unanswered question becomes a chain. Every unspoken explanation becomes a mirror in which they search for faults. They imagine you as cruel, as merciful, as indifferent, as obsessed. All these projections born only from the vacuum you have created. In this way, silence becomes your ally, for it forces them to do your work for you. They torment themselves far more thoroughly than you could ever devise. And in their torment, they remain bound to you, revolving around the orbit of your silence as a planet clings to its sun. Even in love, silence holds greater sway than speech. Lovers cling to words of parting, to promises, to farewells, yet nothing burns deeper than the absence of them. A single unreturned message breeds more anguish than 1,000 insults. The silence suggests everything and confirms nothing, and it is precisely in that uncertainty where the heart withers. Those who wish to free themselves beg for closure, but those who desire control give none. Understand this: well, to speak is to relinquish power, but to withhold it is to magnify your position. It is not the sword, nor the chain, nor the command that most effectively binds others. It is the silence that lingers when they expected sound. Let your enemies rage against their own questions. Let those who once depended on you search in vain for your voice. By saying nothing, you become everything in their imagination, and thus more powerful than if you had said it all. Silence cuts deepest because it never ends. When you deny closure, you deny release. You hold another in a state where the chapter cannot be finished, where the door cannot be shut, where the wound cannot be stitched. They remain caught in a loop, circling endlessly around what has already ended, yet never able to step beyond it. This is the essence of control, not through chains of iron, but through chains of thought. When one cannot let go, they remain bound, and the one who refuses closure becomes the silent master of their unrest. Understand this: people crave completion, not because it gives them truth, but because it gives them peace. When you refuse to grant them that peace, they are left restless, sleepless, unsettled. They turn to you in their imagination, reliving words spoken, searching for meaning in gestures, dissecting moments for hidden messages. Their entire world bends toward you, even in your absence. You need not move against them, for their own minds do your work with ruthless efficiency. They become both prisoner and executioner, keeping themselves shackled in longing for answers that will never arrive. There is a paradox here that few understand. The more you withhold, the more you are present. Your silence fills every space. The more you deny closure, the more power you exert over the narrative, for only you can end it, and yet you choose not to. Thus, you remain the author of their torment, and their obsession becomes the rope that ties them to you. Even if they curse you, even if they despise you, they are still thinking of you. Hatred born from silence often binds tighter than affection. If you grant closure, you grant escape. You release them into freedom, into the possibility of forgetting, of moving on, of building a life where you no longer occupy the center. Closure is an act of mercy, and mercy is a weakness that erodes authority. To deny closure is to ensure their dependence, to make them carry you in their mind like an unanswered question, heavy and eternal. Their identity begins to reshape itself around the void you left, and the void becomes your monument. So it is that the powerful do not explain, do not justify, do not soothe. They understand that words heal, but silence enslaves. To keep another searching, yearning, unraveling themselves for scraps of meaning. That is control in its purest form. And the beauty of it is this: you do nothing. You need not speak, you need not act, you need not even be present. Denial itself is sufficient. For when you refuse closure, you do not merely end a chapter. You make yourself the unfinished story that forever holds them captive. To offer closure is to extend mercy, and mercy is seldom without cost. When you explain yourself, when you justify your actions, when you soothe the one left behind, you reduce yourself from master to supplicant. You place yourself on equal ground with the one who begs for answers, and in doing so, you surrender the advantage of height. Power is not sustained by gentleness, but by distance, by leaving others uncertain of where they stand. Certainty breeds comfort, and comfort breeds strength. But uncertainty corrodes from within, and it is through this corrosion that authority maintains its sharpness. Those who hand out closure imagine themselves noble, believing that they have given the other the gift of peace. Yet this imagined nobility is poison, for it exposes vulnerability. By speaking, you reveal more of yourself than you ought. Your motives, your fears, your need to be understood. Even in a final goodbye, an explanation confesses weakness. The one who hears your words may twist them, mock them, or use them as weapons against you. But the one who receives nothing can do nothing but drown in speculation. Silence is untouchable. Think of the ruler who explains his every decision to the crowd. Each word is a seed of doubt, each justification an opening for resistance. The masses grow bold when they feel entitled to reasons, for reasons invite debate. But the ruler who ends without explanation leaves no cracks in the stone. His authority stands unchallenged because it rests not on persuasion but on inevitability. In the same way, when you refuse to offer closure, you close the door so tightly that no hand can pry it open. The end is the end, and no words are wasted on it. What most fail to see is that closure humanizes you. It softens your image. It paints you as one who still cares enough to explain. But power thrives not on softness, but on enigma. The less you reveal, the greater the shadow you cast. In uncertainty, people imagine 100 possibilities, and in most you loom larger, more dangerous, more untouchable than you ever truly are. This illusion serves you better than any truth you could give. If you grant closure, you give away the final word, and with it, a portion of your strength. But if you deny it, you remain the one who defines the terms of the ending. You force the other to carry their questions like chains, and in those chains they remain tied to you. Even in their attempts to move on, they are never fully free, for the silence gnaws at them more than any explanation could. Thus, closure is not a gift but a surrender. To grant it is to weaken your position. To withhold it is to preserve authority. And so the wise do not explain, do not justify, do not soothe, they end, and the ending itself is enough. The mind is a restless beast, never content with emptiness. When deprived of answers, it begins to turn upon itself, clawing for meaning in fragments, inventing stories where none were given. Deny a person closure, and you will see this beast awaken. They will dissect your silence, replay every word once spoken, interpret every gesture as a hidden code. What you refuse to give them, they will create in their imagination, and the creation will torment them more than the truth ever could. For truth has limits, but imagination has none. A single question unanswered becomes a seed of obsession. Why did it end? What was real? What did they mean? Such questions do not vanish, they multiply. Left without resolution, the mind constructs countless answers, each one sharp enough to wound. It is a cruel paradox. In seeking peace, they stumble into war with themselves. They become both prisoner and torturer, trapped in a cycle of endless speculation. Their sleepless nights, their restless days, their sudden flashes of anger or grief, these are not inflicted by you, but by their own need for what you refuse to grant. You must understand the power in this. Words can be resisted, refuted, dismissed, but silence cannot be escaped. In silence, the mind becomes the executioner, far harsher than you could ever be. It digs into insecurities, magnifies doubts, and poisons memory. They begin to wonder not only about your intentions, but about their own worth. Did they fail? Were they never enough? Was everything a lie? Thus, the absence of closure does not simply keep them bound to you. It erodes the foundation of their identity. Even the proud are not immune. Pride may demand indifference, but the human psyche is weak against the unknown. They will tell themselves they do not care. Yet in the secrecy of their thoughts, they return to the silence you left behind. They may mock you, curse you, swear you hold no power over them. But the very act of protest betrays their captivity. Silence becomes the chain they cannot see, and it binds tighter than iron. This is why granting closure is folly. An explanation would set them free. It would still the storm, calm the questions, give them a narrative they can finally abandon. But by refusing, you deny them the comfort of resolution. You force their mind to consume itself, to gnaw on its own doubts until there is nothing left but exhaustion and surrender. The one denied closure is a battlefield littered with their own thoughts, and you, without lifting a hand, are the victor who stands untouched. The mind cannot live peacefully without answers, and when it is starved, it feasts on itself. The one who commands true power has no need to explain, no need to justify, no need to dress the end in words of comfort. For explanation is an offering, and offerings are made by the weak to ease the strong. When you grant reasons, you lower yourself to the level of those who beg for them. You attempt to soften the blow, to leave them with dignity, but in doing so you give away your own. To end without words is the purest act of authority. The silence itself becomes the final decree, absolute and unquestionable. Consider the conqueror who stands after battle. Does he kneel before the defeated to recount why he triumphed? No. His presence is explanation enough, his victory the only truth that matters. So it must be in every ending. The very act of ending is closure, complete in itself. To add words is to weaken the finality, to offer cracks in the stone where doubt may enter. A ruler, a strategist, one who commands respect. Such figures do not waste their power on justifications. They declare the end by action, not by voice. It is only the small who believe explanations are necessary. They think that by giving reasons, they maintain honor. But honor does not lie in words. It lies in strength. Those who demand closure reveal that they cannot bear silence. Those who give closure reveal they cannot bear to seem cruel. Both are shackled by sentiment, yet power requires a harder resolve. To walk away without softening the blow, to leave without the courtesy of explanation, to allow the other to drown in uncertainty. This is not cruelty but strategy. It is the art of ending without diminishing oneself. Understand this well, every explanation you give diminishes your shadow. It makes you clearer, smaller, more ordinary. But to end abruptly, to vanish without words, to refuse the comfort they crave, this keeps you larger than life, a figure they can never fully understand. You remain the unanswered question, the unfinished story, the silence that echoes louder than speech. In this way, your absence wields more power than your presence ever could. The strong do not owe closure. They do not justify, they do not confess, they do not soothe. They know that the end itself is enough. And in denying the final word, they ensure that they remain the final thought.